Good. So, hello everyone. I'm Paul from the Showaddywaddy website, and I'm delighted to be having a catch up again with Dave. How are you keeping, Dave? You well?
I'm pretty well, yeah. Just freshly back from the gym, Paul. Getting a bit old for it now, but I still try my best to stay in reasonably good shape. So, no, a few aches and pains over the past few weeks, but no, all good for an old one. Let's put it that way.
Good. Fit body, fit mind, as they say.
Well, that's what they say, yeah,
Yeah,
and I think there's a lot in that. Indeed, you got to keep active, and I enjoy being active. So, yeah, long may it continue.
good stuff. Yeah, so it's about 7 or 8 months since we last had one of these chats, and we've obviously covered the band's early days, but this time we're going to look at the band's sort of commercial peak, really, 77 to 79. And you released 9 singles in that time. I think seven of which were top fives, which we'll discuss, and
Yeah,
obviously 3 albums, about 80 TV appearances. So you're always on the box, and obviously
yeah.
sold out to screaming fans, and what a time it must have been that period. So obviously we'll walk through those 3 years.
It was incredible, and actually, I did a radio interview for Radio Two not long ago, just a few months ago, and and you know what you said about being on TV sort of 80 times in that sort of relatively short period. He said you are one of the most recognizable faces from the 1970s, and I was quite staggered. I thought, really, yeah. But it's quite a testament to how sort of popular the band were, and kind of also, how good we were for TV, because obviously we were colourful and a lot of energy and movement and the routines and the harmonies, and a lot of different personalities. Now, I mean, it was an amazing attribute to hear that, but yeah, that period you're talking about, we were really hot property at that time.
I guess as well
Um,
during that time, you and the guys were getting recognised in the street quite a lot. I mean, I know you've said that happens now occasionally, but back then, late 70s, I bet you were.
yeah, yeah. I remember once we were up in Sheffield, and I just went for a wander around the shops, which I always like to do, the sort of town centres. And I went on my own, and crikey, I had to go back to the venue, because literally I was just being stopped every few seconds. And and although the majority of them were very nice people, just happy to say hello and stuff, there were a couple of odd ones. Some guys sort of, you're that bleep bleep guy from Showaddywaddy, aren't you? So not always what you actually think. And I also had a couple of I remember being in my local pub one night, and there was an unpleasant one. Some guy suddenly turned on me. Oh, you're that Showaddywaddy singer. He said, "You're not a real Ted, are you?" I said, "Well." I said, I'm like a reinvention of the Teds. He said, "Well, Teds are supposed to be hard." And he said, "You don't look like you could punch your way out of a paper bag." And I thought, "Well, I'm 6 foot, and I'm quite fit, and I run regularly, and I go on the punch bag quite regularly." and uh, and he was trying to pick a fight, which
Yeah.
I found astonishing. But I sort of said to him, "By the way, these are all my friends." And there was about sort of 7 or 8 guys who I was going to play darts with, and yeah, I think it nipped it in the bud quite quickly.
Well, the strange folk around now, when there were strange
Yeah,
folk around back then.
even worse now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exacerbated by social media now, because people want to video it all the time, don't they, on their phones every
Indeed,
time
yeah, yeah. There's,
it kicks
there's,
off.
there's a lot sort of people just seem to think in this day and age that they have a right to be sort of intrusive. It's which is going to have to do something about that, I think, at
Mm.
some point in the future.
Yeah. So anyway, so at the start of 77, obviously Under the Moon of Love remains in the top 40 for the first 6 weeks of the year. But quickly on the heels of that is your first single, which is When. Now, interestingly about that one, that's well, a couple of things. So first of all, it was the first Showaddywaddy single to be released in the UK in a picture sleeve for those anoraks of us out there. But it was actually a change of label for you. It was the first single on Arista because Bell was sort of absorbed into
Was
Arista.
swallowed up by Arista.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the question is from the band's point of view, what does how does that change things? Is it sort of on your radar, or does nothing really?
I mean, we hope that it would help the band become more successful internationally.
Mm.
You know, we were doing very well throughout Europe, and we were selling records sort of in the Far East and down under in Australia, but we couldn't seem to break into America. And obviously, with Arista being an American label predominantly, and with stars like Barry Manilow and a lot of Air Supply who were massive over there at the time, uh, we thought it might help us on that footing, but sadly it didn't, because the head of Arista is a guy called Clive Davis, who purports to have founded Bruce Springsteen, which is not true, but he still purports to have initially signed Bruce Springsteen, which he probably did, but he just didn't like Showaddywaddy,
Mm.
and he made it clear. So in terms of cracking America, it was time for us to focus on Europe and overseas. And like I said, we went out to the Far East, and we never went down under. There was a strange reason. I think there was a pregnancy in the camp that stopped us from going there. Um, but yeah, I mean, we were so busy. To be honest, I don't think we would have had a lot of time to have toured America. But it would have been nice to have had a crack at America. But there's always things in your career that you wish you'd done and you haven't done. And in a way, like I say, we were rushed off our feet as it was, and so America. We said, well, America can wait, and it's still waiting now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, obviously we've got the gig history on the website, and obviously we've mentioned all these TV appearances, and you're right. There's you don't have a gap of 3 or 4 days sometimes, and through the whole year,
It
barely
was
time for a
crazy.
holiday.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy, right? Sort of right from '73 when we started doing the clubs. We were literally working about 300 plus dates a year. It was mad, and of course, when you become sort of a household name like we did in the period that we're discussing now, there's so much to do. And being the front man of the band, I was often on trains to London, or getting on my flash Merc sports car and tonking it down the M1 to various places, and I became members of the Posy nightclubs and was socializing with some incredible people. But so you have to put yourself out there. You're well, it's like you're the public's property. So you've got to put yourself out there, and your record, of course, your record companies, it's part of your agreement that you have to get out there and promote the band and socialize and do all. When I say socialize, I don't mean just out there boozing with people, but you're actually these are kind of veiled business meetings, if you like,
Mm.
where you're rubbing shoulders with people who can further the band's career.
That kind of brings me on to my next question, actually, because I was looking at the top four when was in the charts, and
Yeah,
the top four at that time was ABBA, David Soul, yourselves, and David Bowie. So obviously you're in
yeah,
good company there. But looking at these
indeed.
TV appearances that you did, so obviously Top of the Pops is the most famous one, but there's Crackerjack, Get It Together, Seaside Special, all that kind of thing. And I was looking at some of the artists that you appeared on those episodes with, and it's everyone from Cliff Richard to Thin Lizzy, even like the Buzzcocks and the Jam around that time. But
Yeah,
is there anyone who you recall meeting that you maybe struck a chord with, maybe an unlikely chord? Like I remember you saying you met Pete Shelley and Paul Weller once, for example.
Yeah. I don't know. You kind of, it's a strange thing when you meet people. People are very, very curious about who you've met. And I have actually done quite a lot of speeches in the last few years for various organizations, like Rotary clubs and things like that. And they want to hear all these stories. And I remember when I was putting my books together, the publisher said, you've got to name drop. It's very, very important to the plot. People want to know, who you've met and I suppose when I come up with those stories, they do make me smile. And I was watching Paul McCartney with Vernon Kay doing his Tracks of My Years on BBC Sounds, and I
Well, that was
thought,
last week, wasn't it? Or the week before?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and it just brought back when I met Paul McCartney, which I wrote about in All Mapped Out, one of my books. But to think that I was stood there in Abbey Road studio just chatting to him like it could have been my next door neighbour.
yeah,
It's just amazing. I think the other one as well was I remember at Top of the Pops. I'd always liked David Bowie because he'd always got something original to say, and I tell you, he was just very, very charismatic. And we're waiting to do our bit on Top of the Pops, and there just stood over from me. It's David Bowie, and he just looked over and sort of politely nodded, and I walked over to him and said, "Yeah, just want to say hello, and so, I love what you do. It's always interesting. I love what you do." And he just said, that's really, really kind of you. He says, it's lovely to meet you as well. And I was completely blown away by how kind of humble he was. And the same goes for a lot of people. And as I say, in All Mapped Out, it is quite well documented. Sort of rub shoulders with um, Bing Crosby and people like this, and obviously we met royalty when we did the Royal Command performance. It goes with the job, but when I go out doing these speeches and I'm telling stories about various sort of celebrities and famous people that I've met, I'm actually quite gobsmacked myself, because 99 times out of 100, these people are great. They're just nice people,
yeah,
and and they're happy to talk because you have got a kind of common ground. You're out there trying to entertain the public and please the public, and that's all they want to do as well. Even if they're actors,
yeah,
they have to work very, very hard learning their lines. You mentioned David Soul. I remember we met him on Top of the Pops as well, and he wasn't really interested in his singing career, to be honest. I mean,
no,
that was a nice little learner for him. we,
yeah,
we might
sideline.
say, yeah. So, but he was an actor, and he was actually when I wandered past his dressing room, and he actually said, "Hey, Dave," and I poked my head in, and he's reading a script,
Yeah,
you know, for might have been Starsky and Hutch or whatever he was doing at the time, and it just said to me, "Yeah, that's what it's all about." Graft, he's on Top of the Pops performing his latest top five chart entry, and there he is, learning his script for the next phase of his career. But
yeah,
incredibly humble, the majority of people, and especially rock and roll bands. And you get madmen. Um, work with a few of those people who used to be one of the lads in Smokey who was I got on amazingly with him, but my goodness, did he like partying? And I
it
couldn't keep
wasn't
up.
Terry Utley, was it?
Well, Terry did like a drink, and he sadly died, I think, last
He
year.
did. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a Bradford lad like me.
yeah.
It's
I know he
terrible.
is. Well, I think the majority, Alan as well, I think
Yeah,
was from Bradford as well.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, we used to get on very, very well with Smokey, but those boys, apart from Chris, they really did like to party. Yeah, they did. They knew how to do it, but again, they were really good lads, and I'm actually still in touch with one of the lads who joined the band later on, a guy called Mick, and yeah, I mean they're still on the road as well. So you never say never in this industry. And I was asked earlier this year if if I wanted to make a comeback for one of the boys' gigs in Ireland coming up in December, and still pondering it, to be honest now, Paul. But
Yeah.
I never thought I would be. But like I say, you never say never.
No, well, I'm sure everyone would like to see you back on stage.
Yeah,
Um,
the voice, I sit at the piano and I warble away, and the voice is in pretty good nick, but it's a little bit difficult to sort of leaping up and down and rushing across the stage and doing a crab back with a mic, at your mouth, and oh crikey! When I look back at how energetic I was, I find it quite frightening actually. No wonder I have a few aches and pains in later life.
so into the summer of '77, You Got What It Takes is the next single.
Yeah,
Now, I know you said there was a few singles that came off the Mike Stacey tapes, but I read about this one that
yeah, that did
around the
well.
time you were recording, it must have
Neither did
been.
When actually. Yeah, neither did When.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were both. Everybody was chucking songs at us. All the publishers were throwing songs at us because we'd had a massive sort of million-selling hit with with a cover. So
Mhm.
all the publishers are coming out and throwing songs at us. But we like to delve a little bit deeper. I think When probably was a bit more obvious. It just had all the ingredients, very, very tuneful song. It suited my voice to a T. And then You Got What It Takes was, I know, again, we were playing a few songs, and it was Mark Johnson's version that I had on tape. And then I listened to, there was a version by the Dave Clark Five as well. And I thought, cross between those two would really hit the spot. And I still actually think it's probably one of our best singles, and it's a great track to dance to as well.
It is. So I was reading that you were recording at Wessex Studios in London at the time, and
Yes,
apparently there was a record shop near the studios, and one of the guys, like, it might have even been you, were in this record shop, and found the Marv Johnson single
yes,
and played it, and then that was how you discovered that
that's
song.
right. We knew the Dave Clark version, and I was later became very very good friends with Mike Smith, who was the singer of Dave Clark, and Mike sadly passed away after uh, an accident at home. That was
Mhm.
quite some time ago, but yeah, I remember I'd heard the Marv Johnson version. It was kind of more soulful than
Yeah,
the Dave Clark version, but we wanted to put our own stamp on it. So, but I wanted to hear what he was doing vocally, and as you say, and there was a place. I think it's actually still there, not up near Tottenham Court Road in London. It's in the back streets, and I'm pretty sure it's still there. And I remember going out sort of before the session had really got underway. Sessions never really. We'd probably get there in the morning, some of us, but the sessions wouldn't really get underway probably till sort of 2 o'clock in the afternoon if we were lucky. But yeah, I remember pulling this "You Got What It Takes" by Marv Johnson out, and we took it back and played it, and thought, now we've got it. We've kind of got the white version, if you like,
yeah.
that Dave Clark Five had done with Smithy's voice sort of very, very prominent on it. And then you've got the more soulful version. So we actually did kind of a bit of both,
Yeah,
and it gave the sort of give it more of our stamp. And obviously in the background you've got, we added backing vocals, all that sort of stuff, which made it sort of very Waddy friendly, shall we say.
yeah. There's a
And
really
and
good
and
bass line on that as well, from
yeah,
Rod.
yes, he did do a nice job on the bass on that track. Yeah, Rod actually did like sort of that kind of more American sort of dance music, and yeah, and he was the right fit for that one. Yeah, it was
Mhm.
great. I really enjoyed
So
doing that single.
that single as well was the first occasion I think where you'd recorded a promotional video. So sort of pre sort of MTV days, but bands are starting to record promos at that time.
Yeah, the MTV thing was bubbling under, and I think
Mhm.
people were watching it in the US, and obviously it was going to come over here at some point. The record companies were, smart enough to realise it's a great tool, for marketing songs. And yeah, we did. I mean, we did one for Under the Moon of Love. Actually, it was a very sort of cheap sort of performance thing. I think in the top of the pop studio. I think we did that, but I don't ever remember actually doing a video for When. But yes, you got what it takes. The record companies were starting to plow a bit more money into that side of things, and yeah, we did a pretty nice video for that.
Yeah, and a few of these appeared on a VHS in the 80s, but I
They
think
did.
we've tried to find them, haven't we? Steve and Michael from Demon have tried to find the originals, and they seem to have disappeared.
Nobody knows where they went, and they don't. Often in the industry, people help themselves to things when they're working on sessions, and they're probably, I don't know, maybe a sound engineer or someone that worked with us. Maybe they're littering up, one of the shelves in his garage.
Yeah. So if you're watching this
You
and you've
just
got
never
the
know.
original promos, then you need to drop Dave a line, and we'll get them out. So later in '77, "Dancing Party" was the last single of the year. Now, an interesting one about this is you'd been working with um, the record producer. My name's got Mike Springfield, Mike Hurst. Sorry, from the
Mike
Springfields.
Mike Hurst, that was the early recordings.
That's right. But that
Mike
this was the
Hurst.
first time where you'd moved away from working with Mike, wasn't it? For this record
Um,
and produced
I
your own.
suppose from a legal standpoint, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'd already. You got what it takes. I don't think Mike was present at any of the sessions on
Oh, okay.
that recording, but yeah, we decided to go our own way. No disrespect to Mike, but I think he was one of the old school, and we kind of wanted to move on and change the sound a little bit.
Yes. And the B side to that single, "One of These Days," you told me that I think you wrote this one.
One of these days, yeah, yeah,
That's the one.
yeah, yeah.
Now, I think you said the lyrics to that one or the song was basically about the frustration of the sort of covers you were releasing at the time, as opposed to having your own material being sort of overlooked as singles. Is that right? And my sort of second part to that question is, to what extent did the band have a say in what was released as a single?
Obviously, the record company, because we were like hot property, basically recording covers at that point. The self-penned songs, Trevor and I were still very, very active writing, but the self-penned songs were kind of dismissed, but by a couple of members of the band as well. People wanted to be safe, but I think in music, it doesn't always pay to be safe. But yeah, obviously it's very, very frustrating when you're spending hours and hours, and you're demoing your own songs, and Trevor and I would go to his mother's place, and we record. Which I've alluded to quite a few times in the past, and we'd do these songs, and we were developing as songwriters, but a lot of the songs weren't getting heard, and that, from a creative point of view, that was very, very, very frustrating. And that's why I think I wrote One of These Days in like just an afternoon, sat in a studio, and yeah, and I mean, it's not a bad track, but yeah, I'm having a bit of a grumble on that one.
Yeah. Um, so around the same time then, so sort of November '77, you released Red Star, the album at that time. Notice that's in quite a glossy package and it's got the three singles on it. So I wanted to ask
Yeah,
you about a couple of tracks on there. So In Above Your Head is an
yeah.
interesting one. So I'm not sure if you wrote that one or if it's one of Trev's.
Trevor was behind that. We, we,
Yeah.
we actually did start working on it together, but no, Trevor could take the credit for that one.
Mm. Now there's a pedal steel guitar on that
Yeah,
song. It's quite a funny looking.
BJ Cole.
That's the one,
BJ.
yeah. I was looking him up and he's still around, but I just wonder if you could sort of tell us a bit about how it came about that he appeared on that track. Because he's quite a
Uh,
well-known session musician.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. At the top. I mean, he's played pedal steel on. Oh crikey, with some amazing names. But he just happened. I think he was doing something. Um, it might have been with somebody like Petula Clark, or we were recording at the music centre in Wembley, where we'd be in the studio, the basement studio downstairs. And oh no, I know who. I beg your pardon. I stand corrected. He was working, believe it or not, with David Carradine,
Okay.
who I don't know if you remember the name David Carradine, but he was the star of the massive TV series Kung Fu
Okay. Right. Yes.
back in the 70s, which was probably the biggest show on TV at one time. Where I don't know if you've seen any of those old, well, what would they be, VHSs or whatever, but Kung Fu, it was a very spiritual thing, but obviously he was a macho man, a very fast and very good with his hands, and got into a lot of scrapes and managed to get out of them unscathed. But and then his mentor was an old sort of tubby guy who had kind of like golf balls for eyes, and he would go grasshopper. People older than yourself, Paul, will remember this with great fondness. It was a great series, and everybody watched it. And he just wandered into our studio to introduce himself while we were working down in the basement. And he wandered in. He wandered in, and somebody said, "Excuse my French." Go, "Oh, piss off, grasshopper," which is quite funny. He didn't see the funny side of that, but he just wanted to say hello, and we welcomed him in, and I think we just had a coffee, and BJ Cole was working on his album. He was actually David Carradine was actually quite an accomplished guitar player, and
Right.
he was doing a country-ish album,
Right.
and yeah, and BJ Cole was up there. So, we returned the compliment, went up to see him, and BJ Cole was there. And I remember saying to him, "Oh, we've got this song, pedal steel, be great on this tune." And he said, "Well, yeah, you know where I am? Just give me the nod." So eventually, I think a couple of days later, there he was playing pedal steel on in Above Your Head.
Yeah.
Wonderful job he made as well.
It's a good song. I was looking at who he played with, and you're right. He's played with Elton John, Cat Stevens, and Roger Daltrey, just to pick a few names
Just
out.
yeah, yeah, and I think a few sort of old classy names, the Shirley Basses and people like that as well. I think
Mm.
he's done stuff with it over the years. But yeah, if he's still around, crikey, he must be getting on a bit by now.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
says he's still still working after all these years.
he must be. He's got to be in his 80s.
Yeah, I'll have to look him up
He
again.
must be.
But yeah.
Yeah, but no, nice guy, and you're just a lovely musician.
So Swan Song is another song on that album. I think you said that's the song that you're the most proud of. Now, what I wanted to ask you about that one was it features an orchestra, the Martin Ford Orchestra. So, how does that work then? What's the sort of logistics around having an orchestra in the studios, and how do you sort of go about writing and arranging a
We did
piece?
we did a few, quite a few. There was Sing on Louise on step two.
Chain Gang.
Lost Chain Gang had strings on it as well, which was a guy called John Cameron. Swan Song, it was a song I'd spent a lot of time demoing it, and I was just very very proud of that song. Still am actually. It's I think I was kind of peaking as a songwriter, and I spent so much time demoing it, and I wanted to really, really make a big production of it. And again, we were in, I think we were possibly in Wessex Studios at that time, and I just picked up the phone and called this guy called Colin Frechter, who was kind of he was an arranger, and he knew all the top guys, uh, the orchestras and the violinists and the cellists and viola players and oboes, the whole lot. And I spoke to Colin and said, "Can you pop down and see if you can put some strings on this?" I
Mm.
said, "It's a rock track, but I just kind of want to just make it a bigger production and just bring sort of the emotive feel out in the song." and he came along and he was blown away with the song and yeah, and put together an orchestra, and in they came, and I was sat in the box, and he was I think he was actually conducting him with a pencil.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, and the strings really added to that track, and it's it is a song that I'm immensely proud of, and there was some talk at one time of it as possibly changing direction, and there was talk of it being a single, but I don't think we could agree on it.
No. Um, Now, also in November 77, you played a gig at the Hammersmith Apollo, and there's a recording of this around because it was recorded live for Capital Radio.
Right.
It was broadcast on New Year's Day 78. But one thing I've sort of taken from that recording is the atmosphere in the venue at that time is absolutely electric. Now, I wanted to ask you about what you remember about the audiences at that time because obviously, you've got that atmosphere, girls sort of screaming and carrying on. And I guess in a way, it must have been like a small window in what it must have been like to be a Beatle or something like that at that time.
Oh, crikey, yeah. I mean, I often talk to people about that. They're really interested in that hysteria side of things. Um, I mean, I remember that gig. I used to love playing that gig. It had great, acoustically great. It had kind of one of those balconies that you could almost see moving when
Yeah.
you're on stage. With excited youngsters, but not all youngsters. And I think I've gone on record before saying the Apollo in Glasgow. That was another one where you just ran out on stage you weren't doing a job. This was just an absolute labour of love. It was just so exciting and thrilling just to run out on stage and all those people. They not only paid to come to see it, they absolutely idolise you, and they are sort of screaming and shouting, crying, and that's just the boys.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a similar kind of thing when you did a TV show called Pop at the Mill. Don't know if you remember this one. Pete
Oh
Murray
yeah, yeah,
presented
yeah.
it, and
I
that
do remember that.
and the
I
fans were
remember that.
storming the stage and everything.
That's right. I remember a young lady with a very northern accent. Told him all the
That's right.
you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, it was very, very, very funny, and it was. What amused us most about that performance, Pop at the Mill, was the DJ was a legend, a guy called Pete Murray,
Yeah.
who who I think is still with us and has just turned 100.
It,
Uh,
it was old
I
school
sta
then.
Yeah, he was old school then. He was very, very old school then, and he didn't really quite get what was going on. I don't think he expected fans to rush the stage. And it was just the look of shock and the surprise and how he handled it. He hadn't got an aggressive bone in his body,
No.
Pete. But his handling of it was just so old school, and we thought it was hilarious. But yeah, that was funny to watch that back on TV. And yeah, well, there you go. It's hero worship. For the masses on a
Mm.
Saturday evening.
Early in 78, you recorded I Wonder Why.
Yeah.
So was that song sort of on the band's radar for a while? Because I think I remember you saying that you'd sort of harmonise it on the way to gigs in the car before you recorded it. And
That was a song that every member of the band was really, really enthusiastic about. And as you correctly say, I can remember us being we were doing a TV show in Germany, and we were all sat round in like a canteen that had been laid on for all the artists that were on this particular program, and we were all sat round the table. We weren't performing; we hadn't even recorded "I Wonder Why," and we were all sat around the table, and we were all practicing our harmonies. And I can remember the whole room came around the table while we were performing our harmonies. And everybody just loved that track. And when we recorded it, spent probably a bit more time on that than some of the others. And I can remember, late in the night, about 4 a.m., um, doing the mix and hearing it back. We always used to there were small speakers that you would listen to because you wanted it how it would kind of sound. You wanted to know how it would sound on a person's sound system, but then you wanted to know how it would sound on a radio. So you put it through a small speaker,
Yes.
and then you would put it on what we used to call the Ronalds, the really
Yeah.
big speakers after Ronald. 4 a.m. and playing it through the various different methods, so you could get the mix right for radio, and then at that time, yeah, it would be going on to CD by that time. Yeah, and I remember listening to it back and thinking, crikey, I think we've got something special there, and it's lovely when you get that feeling when you're making a record. Like all the hard work, all the sleepless nights, and all the pains to get the right harmonies, and whatever other ideas have been included into the recording of it, and it was one of those where it just felt like we'd got a really big hit on our hands, and it went to number one in the Melody Maker and New Musical Express charts, but number two in the so-called sort of official chart, but which was a bit frustrating, but because it was one of our best singles without a doubt.
Yeah. So it was kept off number one by, can you remember? Matchstark Men and Matchstark Cats and Dogs was the number one single apparently at that time.
That was that. Yeah, it was a weird thing throughout our career. We were always kept off number one. I think we were kept off number one 7 times, um, and we were always kept off by freaky records,
Yeah.
kind of Windsor Davis and Don Estelle, Whispering Grass, kept Three Steps to Heaven off number one. The Floaters, Float On, kept another one hit wonder that they were that kept You Got What It Takes off number one. Hey Rock and Roll, the first song, was kept off number one by Ray Stevens' The Streak.
That's
It
right.
was always like, for some reason, yeah, it was always these sort of freaky half comedy records that kept us off number one, which a bit frustrating, but to have all those number twos was quite remarkable.
So I wanted to ask you about the B side of that song, of that single. So that was Ever Loving, which I know
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of songs that you sing are quite high anyway.
it was at the top of my range, that one.
But the what you had it in mind for a different key originally, and then the record company wanted you to sing it even higher still. Is that right?
It not That's not quite right. I think we were doing it uh, originally in a higher key,
Okay.
in E, I think, and I think the recording is in D because the guitarist, I think Russ, and it was the figures that we were playing were much more suited to the chord of D.
Right.
Um, the little finger stuff, and yeah, so it was an extraordinarily high song, but we never performed it on stage, so I never had any difficulty singing it live. But yeah, I mean that was another good song. That was very much the kind of representative of that era, where there was a lot like the Eagles and a lot of close harmonies going on,
Mm.
and there were quite a few songs on our albums around that time. Another song that I wrote, "The Young Indian Brave," that was kind of very much in that sort of genre as well. Um, it was a good song, too good for a B side. I always thought, but there we go.
Yeah. No, there's some of the B sides. A lot of your best material, I think. So into June '78, you released a little bit of Soap, and again, that's a little bit different to the sort of doo-wop style of some of the other singles. I
Yeah,
felt. And
yeah,
you recorded a promo video for that one at the Golden Garter in
we
Manchester.
did. We did the Golden Garter, and with a very famous orchestra, the Halle Orchestra.
You can just see them in the background
Um,
of the video. Yes.
yeah, yeah, and it was actually the Halle Orchestra who were massively famous all across Europe, even the world. Um, yeah, I mean it was nice. We thought that we needed something. We needed to get away from that same sort of doo-woppy formula. It still needed our doo-woppy voices somewhere.
Yeah,
on the track. But yeah, we just needed to do something, a little bit more ballady, if you like,
yeah,
and a little bit. So that came from the cassette that was put together by Michael Stacey as well. And I mean, it's a terrific song. Yeah, it's a really, really great song. And yeah, that was another. I felt one of our better recordings, but kind of a little bit of a departure. But I think Trevor and I hoped that, because there was a slight change of style, that we might get back to some more original songs after
yeah.
that. But there you go.
But the top 10 hits keep coming, which is amazing, really. And
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
at the back end of 78, you release Pretty Little Angel Eyes. Now,
yeah.
I have to tell you, this is the song that's responsible for getting me into Showaddywaddy all those years
Right.
ago. So my parents used to have a red Mini, and I've managed to date it back to 1983. And
I had a Red Mini.
oh, did you really? Yes.
I had a way before Showaddywaddy. It was
Uh,
just when I'd learnt to drive. Yeah, little Red
yeah.
Mini.
Yes,
Anyway,
this was in '83.
digressing.
My mum and dad used to play this cassette in the car. It was one of the Pickwick compilations.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Pretty Little Angel Eyes was the first track, and that was the moment. So I've got my mum. You've got my mum and dad to thank because I've never looked back all those years ago.
I mean,
But
it's
as
such a
regards,
bright thing.
sorry,
It's
yeah.
so bright, really, we're just electric. Really, that performance on that single, yeah, really
Oh, it's fantastic.
swung. Yeah, it just really swung, and it was everything that Showaddywaddy was all about. The voices and the falsettos, and yeah, it was very, very high, the falsetto. And yeah, it was a really good performance and a well-made record.
There's an interesting story with that song, though, that in that TV appearances back then were nearly always sort of performed to a backing track, but you actually performed it live on the Royal Variety Show, and there was
We did.
a technical issue,
It
which
was astonishing. Our kind of big moment. We got our parents in their dinner suits and lovely frocks, and all in the audience, not far from the Queen Mother, and and somebody decided that all the artists were going to do it completely live, including ourselves. Well, it's a bit different, a band playing as opposed to a solo sort of crooner that's got the BBC orchestra in front of them. But yeah, some half-wit sent the stage, the revolving stage, round the wrong way, which sheared some of the cables, and we were ready to go on, and there was an absolute flap. It was utter chaos, and amazingly, Harry Seacombe, who was kind of hosting, and he was supposed to bring us on, he dried up,
yeah,
which was extraordinary, and left the stage, and there was kind of this long, pregnant pause when nobody really knew what the hell was going on. And bless him, Paul Daniels ran out and saved the day. But at the end of the day, there was no bass guitar when we did that song. But I was very proud of my own performance. I really hit all the notes perfectly and all the high ones, and it kind of we got away with it.
well, that's just testament to the band's professionalism, really, that you sort of met with that situation live on television in front of the Queen Mother. And
Yeah, the only time it hadn't been recorded, it was the only time that the Raw Variety performance had been televised live,
mm,
and yeah, it just so happened that we were the ones who had to suffer, if you like. But
yeah.
that's rock and roll, as they say.
So, a couple of the guys in the band have said that meeting the Queen Mother was amongst their sort of proudest moments in the band. But so obviously, you met the Queen Mother on that occasion. Any
I
other
remember
royals
meeting
around?
Margaret as well.
Yeah,
I remember meeting Margaret. She was elegant, and Queen Mum was lovely. She was great, but a lot of artists on the stage all shoving forward to try to shake her hand. But what was extraordinary that day was the Queen Mother actually asked to shake our hands and the
right.
King's singers, who she loved as well.
Yeah.
And so we were pushed to the front. so we got to shake her hand, much to the chagrin of some of the I don't know artists that had been around for a lot longer than us, and
Yeah,
we were the upstarts that day. But it was great, and she was lovely. But yeah, great honour to do it. But just a shame that we did it without a bass guitar. But there you go.
mm. So at the back end of the year, you release your second greatest hits album. So it's quite a glossy package with massive television advertising campaign as well. And on the 19th of December 78, you were playing your last gig of the year at the Demont. And you get the news shortly before you go on stage that the album is due to go to number one any day now.
That was yeah, that was amazing. That was
Yeah.
truly amazing. It's I think on the band's CV, every single top artist, it's their ambition to have the number one album at Christmas, and we achieved it. It was a phenomenal achievement. But to find out, the evening that you're running out on your hometown gig and it's absolutely packed and it's really hot and sticky in there. And I can remember when I shouted to the crowd, "I've got some great news for you." And our album's number one for Christmas. And,
Yeah.
oh God, I'm surprised the roof didn't come off. That was phenomenal. No, it was lovely. And I think a couple of days later, we were being taken out by our record company to a fancy restaurant. And it was, yeah, number one at Christmas. It's a real accolade. And there it is. It's on the CV. So been there and done it, Paul.
You have. So, I mean, I just can't fathom it really. You guys must have just felt absolutely on top of the world at this point. You've had that run of 2 years worth of top 10 singles
It was
in the
phenomenal.
limelight all the time,
Yeah,
and then you sort of have this number one album at Christmas.
yeah. I mean, it's hard work.
Mm,
A lot of people don't realize how tough it is. As you say, you're up there, but you're literally on the go all the time because even sort of on your days off, you've got to rush off somewhere
yeah.
to pose for some shots with a photographer or do a radio interview
Yeah.
or you've got to get up at sort of the ungodly hour of sort of 8 o'clock to chat on breakfast radio. And I mean, it literally is. It's just non-stop,
Mm.
and it does become exhausting. But as you say, when you're on cloud nine, the adrenaline just continues to pump, and it's a lovely place to be. Yeah, amazing.
That album actually knocked the Grease soundtrack off number one, which is obviously massive at the time. And I think it had been
Which
number one for 3 months.
it had been something like that. I
Yeah,
think it was something like
long time.
14 weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which was, and even our record company couldn't believe it. Yeah, and they bought us all a bottle of whiskey, which I gave I gave it away to charity because I don't drink whiskey. But yeah, was Bell's whiskey in about bell shaped
Okay, yeah.
bottle. Yeah, yeah, uh, yeah. Happy days, Paul. But
Happy days.
it's nice to sort of look back and think of that as I won't say the pinnacle, but it's certainly one of the high spots of the career.
So into 79, 1979 is actually my favorite year for music because there was so much around at that time. So you've got
We're
punk
getting
sort of still
towards
hanging.
punk, weren't we? Yeah,
Yeah, well, sort of punk was 77, I think, wasn't it? But it's still sort of hanging on in 79. But then you're starting to get like the mod revival coming in and things like that. You've also got disco, American rock.
yeah, yeah,
You're even getting like a bit of electronic music starting to come in, with Gary Newman and so on.
yeah,
Um,
indeed.
but I wanted to ask you about there was sort of some other sort of rock and roll doo-wop bands around at that time. So, the likes of Darts and Racy and Rocky Sharp and the Replays. So how
Matchbox. Yeah,
Matchbox. So how
yeah.
did you view it at that time? Was it like all quite friendly or did you see them as like rivals?
Yeah, I mean, darts was kind of an obvious thing, I suppose, because the guy who formed darts was a guy called Tommy Boyce,
Mm.
who co-wrote Under the Moon of Love. And Tommy Boyce contacted ourselves and we recorded another one of his songs, Pretty Little Angel Eyes.
Mhm.
And I think he got a bit excited. He thought we were going to record his entire catalogue of songs, but some of the others were nowhere near the standard of those two songs. And anyway, we had our own sort of writing ability within the band, and we'd got publishers and record companies slinging stuff at us from all over the place for us
Mm.
to record. Um, so that we, like I said, it was just non-stop, and those other artists were basically, without sounding arrogant, I suppose they were just climbing on the bandwagon,
Yeah.
really, because we'd been so successful. But Darts, was formed by Tommy Boyce, and they made some great records, and I always remember, I'll never forget the female singer in Darts, Rita.
Rita
Um,
Ray.
Yeah, absolutely. He came up and wanted a photo with me and wanted my autograph, and she was so humble and she was lovely. And I know she's gone on to be very, very successful in the industry. And God bless her. She was a very, very nice person.
Yeah, she does radio shows, I think, on one of the BBC Six, or she used to do. I think, can't remember, but
Yeah,
yeah, she's still
yeah,
around. Um,
yeah. And
but
she did a fantastic vocal as well on The Boy from New York City. It's no, she was very talented, and they're a good band. Dan
mm,
Hegarty was a good character, and as for the sort of Rocky Sharp, and I remember meeting Matchbox. They kind of got quite lucky, really, because I think they were older than ourselves,
yeah,
and they just got lucky because they had stuck to their guns, and that's the kind of music they played, and they got signed, and they had a couple of hits. When you ask about love, I think old Buddy Holly song, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Rockabilly Rebel is the one I remember.
Right. But
Yeah,
they were nice people, but that's the way the record industry is. You find a successful sort of winning formula, and yeah, they start signing artists. I mean, it happens all the time. How many sort of Amy Winehouses
yeah,
did the record companies try to sign? My
yeah.
goodness.
So 79 is actually it starts off really cold. It was the winter of discontent, they called it, with all the strikes and stuff that were
Oh,
going on as well. Um, so I read that you had a gig postponed in Wolverhampton in February because the press reported that yourself, Bill Gaskin, Russ were snowed in at home and you couldn't make the gig. But the most sort of well-known one is you're on your way to a gig in Oldham and you're on the
yeah,
road and got stuck on the motorway.
14 hours. I can remember that trip. That'll live with me to my dying day, Paul.
Yeah. You had a couple of
That
Granadas at
trip.
that time, I think. So you got four guys in one Granada, four guys in another, sort of
That's right.
cooped up.
14 hours.
Yeah.
And we couldn't even stop at a post office or a pub or to get a drink because we were desperate to make the gig. And I think we actually did get there, but
Mm.
it was too late, and majority of the audience had gone home,
Yeah.
which was a shame. Unfortunately, I don't think it took 14 hours to get back. I think we were able to bed down before the journey back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that in a car, I think that's probably the record, although I can personally remember one of the most exhausting things I did, and I still don't know how I did it to this day, was driving from a gig in Dundee at the Caird Hall and driving from Dundee all the way through the night to Heathrow,
Right.
non-stop. I think just to fill it with petrol, that was all. And yeah, I mean, people that think this gig's easy, it's
Yeah.
nobody's easy.
I bet you know the motorway network like the back of your hand.
We did, yeah, we did. At least in those days, driving from Dundee to Heathrow, there were no speed cameras,
No.
so at least the law were fighting fair at that time.
Yeah. So 2 weeks after getting snowed in on the M62 or wherever you were in completely different place, Malta in the sun. About a week
Yeah,
later, you played an outdoor gig in the sunshine at the
on my
football
birthday.
stadium.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you have any particular
indeed.
memory of that one?
Well, that was quite an extraordinary one as well because when we actually got across there, we found out that this huge show in the Gazira Stadium, I think it was called, where England once played and I think won 10-0 or something. Um, it was there was hardly any grass on the pitch at all, but yeah, we were there was this massive celebration, and we were top of the bill at this outdoor occasion, but we hadn't realised it was a celebration of kicking the British out
That's right,
off
yeah.
the island, which was bizarre. So when we found out, I think I said something. I said, "Oh, you lot anti-British or something along those lines." And I don't think they were, to be honest. I think it was the politicians that were
Yeah.
anti-British. But there you go. Politics don't always get it right. The politicians.
So, funnily enough,
Well,
talking of like doing gigs abroad, I noticed when doing the gig history for 79, you're doing a lot of gigs across Europe, Germany, Austria, Poland, and so on. Um, Now, I remember you mentioning that the band were considering moving outside of the UK in 79 due to sort of high tax situation.
yeah,
So, is that the reason why you were probably doing more offshore gigs that year?
I think the plan was the taxation was extraordinarily high, and obviously we'd been doing riding the crest of a wave for 2.5 years, but because of the size of the band and the size of the production and everything that went with it, we hadn't made very much money really.
Yeah.
We were comfortable, we were doing fine, but it wasn't what you would expect, probably the biggest band in the country sort of to be earning at that time. And yeah, we sat down with an accountant one day. We all sat around a table with an accountant, and he said, I think you're going to have to clear off and have a year out, lads. Otherwise, you're going to be paying a ridiculous amount of tax next year. And it was going to be like 83 pence in the pound. So, for all the work we were putting in, it just, I don't know, it just seemed fatuous. And yeah, we all, I was going to go and live, I'd found a place in Jersey, and a couple of the lads were going to live in the Isle of Man. I can't remember where. It's nobody really knew what was going on because obviously the band had got families, and I think some of them were being instructed to try and just carry on living in the UK, but kind of as if they weren't living there. But yeah, I mean, it was a ridiculous situation, and it was the taxes were not allowing people, hardworking musicians, to really earn enough money during their purple patch to sort of set themselves up for life, which it kind of changed my political persuasion, if you like,
Mm,
and of course round about it was quite incredible because we were as I said, I'd already got this place in Gory Bay in Jersey to go and spend sort of my sort of personal time, and I was very much single at the time as well, and Thatcher got in.
yeah,
Uh, and I think within 2 weeks, the 83 pence in the pound had been scrubbed, and the top whack was 40.
yeah.
So we were all, furiously phoning the accountants and to find out what was going on. And no, you're okay to stay, lads. But as you mentioned, we'd already set up to do more sort of work throughout Europe that year, and consequently, we did spend a lot more time in Europe. But at least we didn't have to, clear off from our homes.
Yeah, just onto the records. Remember Then was the first single of 79, which is it's an excellent song, but after sort of seven consecutive top five singles, this is the sort of the first one that, it only peaks at 17. And
Yeah.
obviously your run of top tens isn't going to last forever. But what are you and the band sort of thinking at that time as the top 10 singles start to
I'll be perfectly
get
honest.
off?
I didn't want that single to go out.
Mm.
I thought it was far too close, even though it's a good song. I thought it was far too close to things like Pretty Little Angel Eyes and the doo wop things
Yeah.
that we've been doing, and we certainly the majority of the members of the band we weren't those that were interested in the music side of things. It was too much of the same,
Yeah.
and we wanted to try and get away from it, which we almost did. I think after that was Sweet Little Rock and Roller, but again, there's a gripe on that one because I think we recorded it in like a day, and it was far too rushed and should have been a much better production than it was. But yeah, that was kind of a difficult period. But we were realists, and we knew that we couldn't go on just having hit after hit forever. Particularly, at the rate we were doing sort of five, six, seven singles a year. It was madness. And
Mm.
in this day and age now, artists barely do one single a year. Some of them don't do a single for 2.5 years. It's the whole thing has changed completely,
Mm.
and it's not saturation. So if you go away and you look at doing another project and trying to make changes, the record companies in the modern era allow you to do that to develop as an artist. And unfortunately, we were selling so many records to teenagers and when you're doing music, for that audience, eventually you're going to come unstuck because teenagers move on to other things.
Yeah.
It's more fickle,
Yeah.
and they move on to other things, and they have new heroes, and you can't just keep churning away at the same formula. It's and that was a bit frustrating because from a creative point of view we were still more than capable of making better records than Remember Then and Sweet Little Rock and Roller, although I did like that song very much. I didn't think it was the best recording, but that's from a personal perspective.
So, in fact, the B-side to remember then is a song called "Love for a Star." Now, that's actually sounds like there's loads of effort gone into that one. There's a wonderful guitar solo in that. It reminds me of "Come Up and See Me, Make Me Smile," the sort of guitar
Yeah.
solo in that. Now, have you got any particular memories of that track?
I think it was a time when we were still Trevor and I were still writing, as I said, a lot of songs and trying to develop and kind of trying to get away from like I said, just that same sort of doo-wop in the deep voice and all that from that formula, and kind of earn some respect as songwriters. And I mean that it was a decent song. I think again it was recorded in a bit of a hurry, but there it was stuck on a B side, and again no development would come out of that. And people like yourself who you're obviously an avid follower. You listen to the B sides and things, but how often do you listen to some of the tracks that artists do nowadays that aren't on the album? You don't really do it very
Uh,
much. It's yeah, that was difficult, but especially as writers, Trevor and I just want. I think we actually wanted to just try and get away and do something slightly different. We still wanted to do it with the band, but you know, ultimately it culminated in me doing a song with a solo single with Phil Wayman and recording a number of other
mm.
songs to try and sort of just show that I was capable of doing something slightly different. But it
You're
never
right,
quite
just what you
happened.
touched on a moment ago. I think kids listen to music a bit differently these days. I mean, my daughter Iona, she loves the Smiths and Morrissey, but she listens to
Right?
like all of the well-known ones. And I said to her, "Don't you listen to a Smiths album from start to finish?" And she
Yeah.
says, "Oh no." And I said, "Well,
No,
there could be songs on the album that are just as strong as the singles that
that's absolutely right.
you haven't
Yeah,
discovered
they
yet."
just have to grow a bit more.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
yeah. Yeah, people, yeah, kids do listen to music very, very differently. Although, it never ceases to amaze me. I've seen some really good bands in recent times. I've been to the Roundhouse a couple of times. I saw a American band called the Red Clay Strays, who I really, really like. Oddly enough, their new album is coming out this coming Friday. They were astonishing. They were an amazing kind of blues, bit of country in there, but they just play real music, and they were brilliant live. And it was kind of like a real throwback, to see a band just performing, and the understanding between the musicians was something to behold. And
Yeah.
then just only last week I saw a guy called Stephen Sanchez, who I think he came on stage with Elton John at Glastonbury a couple of years ago. And I was just amazed. The audience were so young.
Mm.
I was the granddad in the audience, without a doubt. But it what hit me was that obviously young people are still very, very much into music,
Yeah.
proper music.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Red Clays was predominantly a younger audience, although there were a few sort of long-haired old guys, that used to like their blues artists, or old sort of what Jeff Beck fans, or whatever. But music is still very, very relevant, very, very important, and there's still a lot of kids that are loving music. I mean, Stephen Sanchez, half the audience knew all the words. I certainly didn't, and I've listened to his albums a few times, but it's still there, and there's elements of retro creeping back into music again, which quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of songs and albums these days seem to be overproduced and too crisp, really. And if you can, even things like bringing in some older recording techniques, maybe to make the
That,
sound a little softer or the
which I
production a little
think
softer. Yeah.
which I think those two artists I mentioned, they
Yeah.
definitely are doing it in more of a traditional way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and it I don't know, did the songs come alive? And
Yeah.
it's but although you could argue about it all day, it's kind of like arguing, what's better, vinyl or CD. It's if you listen to Brothers in Arms, then CD wins. But the
Yes.
majority of the time, if you want to listen to Bruce Springsteen or whatever, or something like that, vinyl wins every day. So yeah, I mean, it's so much to go at in music now, and but it is refreshing to see artists that are still playing music how it should be played, and not really using gadgetry, and getting back to sort of the old guitars, and obviously country music has never been bigger in this country,
Uh,
although I think the days of sort of writing songs about your dog's just died and all that. That's it's not quite so relevant, and a lot of the country music now that we hear, which comes, I don't know, a lot of it. I hear a lot of it on these Yellowstone. I don't know if you've been watching it, the Yellowstone
oh,
series
like
that's on.
the Paramount TV program or
Yeah,
CBC.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
some of the soundtracks are astonishing,
Yeah.
and country it's very, very acceptable. It's not the old traditional sort of three chord country. It's songs. So no,
Mm.
music's really healthy, and it's
Yeah.
still in a good place, which is brilliant. And you've got so many different genres to go at. It ought to keep everybody happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so back in the 79, you released Daddy G's as a single. Now, I wanted to ask you about a time you recorded, you did a performance of it on Music Ladder, which was a German top of the pops. So the band, you might remember for some reason the band were a bit light on numbers for the TV appearance. So Trevor wasn't there. Bill Gaskard apparently got involved in a bit of a scuffle with some locals and ended up not appearing. And there was a different drummer who mimed along with the band. Do you remember
I can't
anything
even
about
remember
that?
the
Yeah.
shame of it all. Well, I can't even remember his name.
I think
I think he
I remember you saying on the website once he was from the Lou Lewis band.
That's it.
Guy.
Yeah, yeah. Lou Lewis was a great harmonica player. Uh, yeah, that was an extraordinary trip. The band at that time, I don't know, we weren't getting on.
Hmm.
There were. a few issues within the band, and dare us mention the dreaded drink.
Yeah.
Was becoming a bit too reliant for some of the guys. But so we kind of, let's just say we'd lost our mojo.
Mm.
Again, a little bit frustrated, but everybody's human at the end of the day, and but we were falling out, and some of the people were disinterested and didn't want to spend much time in the studio, didn't want to go into rehearsal, and like I say, it just felt a little suddenly as if the bubble, had finally burst.
Yeah.
But then a lot of work was put in after that when we started losing members, and we kind of managed to resurrect it, and have some more wonderful years on the road.
Mm. So that song and some of the other ones we've just discussed were on the Crepes and Drapes album, which came out at the back end of '79. And you decided to go to France to record the album, at least initially. To
Recorded some of the stuff in
yeah,
France, yeah.
Le
It
Chateau
wasn't,
studio, was it?
yeah, the chateau in France, not far from Paris. They said it was haunted, and there were a few screams coming out of some of the bedrooms. I'm not sure that ghosts were really involved.
Say no more.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Uh, yeah, yeah. But again, people. It was weird what was happening at that time. People were coming and going. You know, people would show up and just do something on a track, and then go and get on a plane, and it was extraordinary. It wasn't a very creative period, but although Crepes and Drapes was not actually a bad album. There was some, and again, we Trevor and I had managed to get a few more songs on there,
Yeah.
um, but I think three or four of them that were originally intended to be on Red Star.
Yeah, so Lost was one of those. I think you recorded
Yeah,
that in '77.
yes,
But obviously,
yeah,
for whatever reason, it wasn't on Red Star.
yeah. I mean, again, it was one of those things where it was very much a sort of personal song to me, and I don't know, there was just a bit of a fallout. Still think it's a lovely song. I hear it back, and I think it's a very decent song, and the strings are beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's nice to a lot of the fans loved some of those weepies that,
Yeah, I
that we used to
mean,
do.
we've said before, I mean, it shows the band in a different light, really, because obviously you've got these ballads, and obviously Lost is something of it's an epic song, really. I mean, there's a lovely guitar solo
Great
from Russ,
guitar solo, yeah, yeah,
which I think would be Russ, I would imagine, at the end.
yeah, yeah. It was Russ, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. It was great doing that, and but again, when the togetherness was. I won't say it was in tatters. It was just
oh,
we just weren't very together as a unit at that time, and people were off doing other things. And, yeah, frustrating period as an artist, but it was a very decent album, and there was some half decent songs on there, and the covers as well. It was a very good album.
mm.
I think it
Um,
went top 10, Grapes and Drapes.
it did, yes. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
got some number 7 or 8, I think, in the album
yeah,
chart.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
One song that I did skip actually a few minutes ago was "Sweet Little Rock and Roller."
Yeah.
Now that was quite an unusual cover in so much as it wasn't a cover of a '50s or '60s song. It was actually
No,
recorded only maybe 3 or 4 years before by Joe Dolan. So it's actually
Joe
covering
Dolan.
a '70s track,
Yeah,
which is
indeed.
a bit different for Showaddywaddy around that time.
I think as I was saying, it was kind of we'd got a bit trapped in that sort of doo-woppy sort of sound thing, which was kind of becoming a bit old hat, if you like,
Yeah.
and just needed something. Just wanted a great song, and we actually worked with Joe Dolan over in Ireland, and there he is doing this song, and I can't remember who it might actually have been Russ. he said that would be worth recording, and it kind of got. We didn't do anything about it immediately, but about a month or so later, we're looking for songs, and obviously Trevor and I put a couple forward. But there was that, and it was just yeah, it was just a slight. It was a great pop song, and we
Mm.
just thought, yeah, if it's a good song, and it's not got all the doo wops and all that sort of stuff, and we can just get away from it and just do a, a normal sort of pop song, as it were, with some added brass. Then yeah, let's do it. More kind of going back to sort of the Under the Moon of Love sort of kind of formula, if you like,
Mm.
which wasn't very doo woppy, but yeah, I mean it was a great song. I enjoyed singing it and very high register, and for me, it's actually still in the band's set that they're currently doing. It's one of the standout songs for me.
Yeah, always goes down well in a live
Yeah,
situation, that song.
yeah,
Um, so on Crepes and Drapes, there was a song called "That's All Right with Me," which was one of Trev's, I think, one
yeah.
of Trev's favourites. I understand the band were keen on doing that as a single at the time, perhaps, but obviously it was overlooked by the record company.
Yeah, record company didn't want to do it again. Um, no, it was that was I thought that was one of Trevor's best songs.
Mm.
And believe it or not, 2 days before he died, I was actually singing that song to him at his bedside.
Oh,
So yeah, that was a really good song. I had a lot of trouble getting Trevor into Elvis. And then all of a sudden, he just turned and became an Elvis fan. And that's kind of song, Elvis sort of thing. It was a really nice song, and I loved singing it as well,
mm.
with a little bit of a nod to Elvis as well. And yeah, a really nice track. Should have been a single. I think it would have been a great success, but all the powers that be, they had the sort of final say, shall we say?
Yeah. And then just to wrap up on Crepes and Drapes, there was another song on there, "Win Your Heart," and
Yeah.
I think someone on the old website Q&As years ago asked you what your favourite guitar solo was, and you pinpointed "Win Your Heart" as like a twin acoustic guitar solo, which I'm assuming is yourself and Russ.
Yeah, it was. Again, it was a really cute song. I actually, oddly enough, I was listening to a lot of real 50s stuff, like the softer sort of side of the 50s, the
Mm.
Everlys and Bobby Fee and things like that. And it's really just great tunes and lovely harmonies. And I thought I've just got to write one of those sort of very 50s, early 60s sort of influence sort of songs, and it was a really pretty little tune. And like you said, the guitar solo was tremendous. Really, made it into quite a classy track.
Yeah. No, there was actually a guy, Alan, sent me a cover version of that. There was like a Spanish, I don't know who it was, some kind of Spanish artist did a cover
Really,
version of it. Yeah. I
in
think,
Spanish.
yeah, I remember sending you a cassette of it maybe 20 years ago, it must have been. I don't know what I've done with it now, but yeah, it's
Are they
quite.
a hard sing? That's going to be difficult because I think win is Ganya, isn't it? And heart is Coruscant. So how you Ganya Coruscant? Who
Well, I don't
knows?
speak Spanish, so that's pass me by. So just a couple of gigs to point out in 1979. So in the summer of 79, you played the Golden Orpheus Festival in
Ooh,
Bulgaria, and that was quite pertinent in that you were the first Western group to be beamed by satellite to Cuba.
Cuba.
You've got it.
Crikey, what sad place that has become. Uh,
Yeah.
Amazing place to visit. But yeah, I'm digressing. Um, yeah, that was astonishing. That was like the Eurovision Song Contest for all the communist countries of the world.
Mm.
It was really extraordinary, and there are a lot of artists, obviously, from those countries. From like Uzbekistan or places like that, or Poland, all the communist bloc basically were represented, and we were invited as the international guests.
Yeah, yeah.
And I still think it was one of the best performances as a live band that we ever put on.
Mm.
It was just electric. But 300 million people watched
Yes.
that, which is quite astonishing. And we really did, really did nail it and just knocked them dead. And we were staying there for a couple of days after, and it was quite extraordinary. Everywhere we went, it was like hero worship. It was wonderful. We'd kind of been discovered in all the communist countries, but and after that, we were invited to do tours of Poland and East Germany and a lot of the communist bloc, but never did too many. We did. I do remember doing a 3 day tour of East Germany where the girls were absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
It was a real problem, that was.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was. Yeah.
No, there was real hero worship. It was great. It was kind of like it was going around again in the Eastern Bloc, if you like.
Was
But
that about the time I remember you saying when you were getting marriage proposals from
yeah, oh
we-
yeah, yeah, from East Germans, yeah, lot of yeah, very attractive young ladies, yeah, marriage proposals, but I think they just were looking for a way out.
yeah.
Of course, 6 years later, they got it.
Yeah, the wall came down. Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Um, Now you might remember this one at the back end of '79. You did a gig at the Alexandra Palace in London, Club 1830 event.
Oh, don't bring that up. No.
So maybe briefly then, there was an issue where you were hit with a beer can.
I was hit with a full can of Coke
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
that hadn't been opened,
Yeah.
um, and he was a bloody good shot whoever threw it because
Yeah.
it hit me literally just above my eye, and had a scar for quite a number of
Mm.
years. I was completely stunned, a little bit concussed, and just walked off the stage.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in there was, well, to put it mildly, were very drunk.
Well, it was a Club
Yeah.
1830 event, wasn't it? So it comes with the territory, I guess, back at that time.
I suppose so. Extraordinarily, at that gig, my future wife was in the audience.
All right.
I think she used to work for 1830 at one point. So yeah,
So does she
but
remember it?
it's I think the only time I have ever left the stage, I think it happened at Nottingham University as well when some maniac threw a stool. Now why would a standing audience a stool, and it literally just missed me, and I said something very rude into the microphone. Said I'm not target practice. See ya.
Yeah.
That was the end of that one.
Yeah.
So that's the only time it happened. But the one at the 18 to 30, the Ali Pali, I wasn't in. Had to go to hospital, obviously, and it wasn't in a fit state to continue. But didn't happen very often, really, considering almost 40 years in the band. It didn't twice.
Mm.
I think walking off stage, but yeah, it certainly wasn't. The only bit of petulance was at the Nottingham one, but yeah, I just didn't. It was the beginning of that era where I know a lot of audiences. It was kind of the punk thing, and a lot of artists were going on stage and getting covered in spit,
Oh, yeah.
and I didn't really fancy that, and I thought that
No,
might be next.
no. A similar thing happened to me when I went to see a band called the Cribs, the Wakefield band. They've had a couple of minor hits, and the atmosphere, it was absolutely mental. And for some reason, people were throwing bottles of beer, and I was
Yeah,
sort of near the front, and I got a bottle of beer on the back of the head,
it
and
hurts.
it does. And I sort of skulked and watched the rest of the set from the from the side,
Yeah,
sort of rubbing my head.
yeah,
Can't believe what
yeah. I
people
think
go through people's minds.
perhaps it's not so bad these days because there's more security. But yeah, bottles are quite dangerous things. You
Mm.
take somebody's eye out of. But yeah, exuberant kids, I suppose. But
Yeah.
I remember going to see Supergrass at a place called Rock City in Nottingham,
Oh,
and going into the mosh pit, which you kind of had to. And being tall, I thought I'd be able to see. But as soon as Supergrass came on, everybody started pogoing.
yeah.
And myself and Danny, who was in the band, who was with me that night, we were pogoing for the entire show. I think we put more effort into that performance than Supergrass did.
My sister went to see Oasis at Rock City before they sort of got really big, sort of
Yeah,
early '94. Good venue.
yeah, still go there once in a while. Yeah,
Yeah. So anyway, that actually wraps up '79 and indeed the
great.
'70s, and an absolute sort of whirlwind of a 3 year period, really.
Yeah, yeah, incredible,
Unbelievable.
incredible highs and lows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a busy, full-on period. Um, but we survived it, and the band's still here today. People still want to hear those songs, and it's amazing. It's an amazing testament to the name Showaddywaddy, to be honest.
Well, I mean, which bands can you name that have had 7 consecutive top 5 singles? There's
There aren't
probably
many.
not many.
No, there aren't. No, there aren't many at all. No, it's amazing. And there you go. It's all history, but it brings back some doing these chats. Brings back some really happy memories.
Oh yeah, and the band have certainly made the mark in
Yeah,
musical history.
indeed,
So next
indeed.
time we speak, we'll talk about the sort of early '80s, and obviously you're moving into a new decade, but you're still having hits and
Yeah,
obviously dozens of gigs, and even your own sort of TV special, the Showaddywaddy Show in
yeah,
1980. So maybe we can chat about that next time. That should
yeah,
be
yeah. Absolutely,
interesting.
100%. Yeah, brilliant.
Good.
No,
Well,
always good to chat, Paul.
no, no, thank you. It's really interesting. I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure everyone will enjoy listening back
I
to
hope they
some of
do.
the
I hope they
stories.
do. And keep watching. And while we're at it today, I mean, I don't know if anybody listens to the Heritage Radio, Mike Reed's radio station. The band the number three in the Heritage chart.
Yeah, maybe we should tag this on to the end because obviously we've
And it's
these
the
three
fans
new.
can vote. Yeah, the
Yeah,
fans
so
can
these.
can.
Sorry, go on, Dave.
No, no, no. It's very much a fans sort of radio station, and there's a lot. McCartney's in the chart as well. We're number three. It's fantastic with dot dot dot, and um, yeah, I mean, keep voting.
Yes, indeed. So these tracks were thought to be lost.
They
Dot,
were,
dot, dot,
yeah,
3 Good Reasons, and a different recording of Out on the Town. But
yeah, that's right.
Steve chatted with Roger Lomas, and we've managed to, or Steve's
I've
managed to
tried.
track them down.
I've tried to get hold of Roger for years because I got on really, really well with Roger, and we just lost contact, and then all of a sudden Steve managed to get hold of him, and and Roger contacted me. He found out where I was, and
Yeah,
yeah, and he said, I'm going up there to have a look into his loft, and there was a master,
yeah. Blew the
and
dust
yeah,
off,
and
right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it had to go. It went down to Demon, and it was put in an oven, and
Mhm.
yeah, and the dot 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 sounds great. It's a really upbeat recording, and I'm really happy with that, and I'm really happy with my vocal on it as well. And yeah, and I'm just glad that a lot of local radios and obviously Heritage, and it's getting a hell of a lot of players and a lot of attention, which is brilliant.
I know it's interesting as well because you recorded these tracks sort of quite late on in the band, well, the original band's career,
84, yeah,
'84,
yeah,
and obviously they weren't released at the time, and obviously thought to be lost. And it's amazing that after 40 years, 42 years, they're discovered.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, Steve's always saying, "Can you find some?" I mean, I've found other stuff that I'm not letting him have. But I mean, there are a few other demos, and yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, there was some demos that Trevor and I did as well. I've been looking for those good because they were actually quite half decent recordings. But yeah, you never know what we might come up with. But it's just great that the fans are still wanting to buy this stuff and add it to their collections and yeah, and to it doesn't matter what chart it's on. Number three is very healthy.
Yes, and I mean, I mean, I was looking at the charts because I kind of lost track with the charts, and it was when Hey Mr. Christmas was re-released, and I was
Yeah,
looking on the official charts website, and there seems to be dozens of different charts: a vinyl chart, a
there are.
download chart,
Yeah,
heritage
yeah,
chart, as you've mentioned. But as you
yeah.
say, number three in any chart is not to be
It's great,
sniffed at, is it, really?
because Hey Mr. Christmas, was the number one in the vinyl chart
Yeah.
for a week. Yeah, incredible. Yeah, the longevity is just stunning. It's never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, and who'd have thought after, when you first formed the band in '73 that there would be this sort of level of interest in 2026? It's amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah, it really is. It's mind blowing, actually. Yeah, but yeah, great to chat, Paul.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Enjoy the rest of your
Yeah,
day.
and you, and we'll catch up soon, and I'll see you at Valley Parade next year
Well, yes,
if
yes.
I can rejuvenate my interest. But
Yeah, I thought there was a chance we might skip you and Bradford would go the other way, but we
yeah,
unfortunately we were
yeah,
beaten by Bolton in the playoffs.
I
Um,
watched it actually. I think yeah, I think Bolton probably got a stronger squad, hadn't they?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
I think all the Bradford City fans were quite accepting of the fact we were just beaten by the better team over the two legs, and
Well, he hit the
we
bar
gave it
just
a good
before they
go.
scored. He hit the bar just before they scored.
That's right.
It's,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. It's a cruel game, but I mean, it's been especially cruel for me because it's the last two seasons have been the two worst
Mhm.
seasons in the club's history, and the way the club is being run is an absolute shambles. And I'm not that hopeful because the same people that are guilty for our demise are still there.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not that optimistic about our chances next season. So we'll see. It's as they say, it's a funny old game,
It
and
is. Did I see
yeah,
that even without the points deduction, you would still not quite have had enough points to stay up, even if you had?
I think we would have just stayed up because West Brom got deducted too at
Oh,
the
oh, that's
death.
right.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah,
yeah.
they did. Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. But
Yeah. There you go.
no,
The trials and tribulations of following a football team.
oh, it's sometimes it's horrible. I mean, the last two seasons have been just dismal.
Stressful.
Yeah, absolutely dismal. But there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, horrible
Good
game
stuff.
sometimes.
It is.
But
Right.
good to chat as always. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Cheers,
catch up
Dave.
soon, Paul.
Yeah, we won't
Yeah.
leave it so long next time. We'll maybe do it.
Oh, don't worry about that.
What
No.
are we on now?
But
June, 1st of June today. So maybe back into the summer, we'll have a look at doing
yeah.
the early 80s.
Okay. All right, Paul.
Right, all the best.
Cheers for now. Yeah, take
Yeah.
care.
See
Bye.
you
Bye.
soon.
Bye
Bye.
today.